Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. The market has been pummeled and it's been terrible, right? Unless you like buying cheap. Now, it's hard when you already have everything invested in the market and you go through this, which is the case a lot of times, because sometimes when it gets cheap, we don't know as human beings it's going to get even cheaper. And then it does. And then we're like, crap, I could have bought twice as much of this risky altcoin I just bought for what I had paid for it. Darn it. That is the hardest thing I deal with in these big discounted days, because these are huge discounted days. And I can't think of a better person to have joining us as we look at these huge pummeled prices. Now, this doesn't happen all that often in history where prices get pummeled this much, especially when it's in the middle of what should be a bull market. And so we're going to look at price analysis with our expert, Paul from Definity, who's going to be joining us. So stick around for that, because if you like money in crypto and you're looking for a real investor take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family by liking this video and subscribing with that all notifications button enabled. Special note, I am not a financial advisor. Paul is not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself, sharing with you how I think about the crypto markets and specifically cryptos I like. Now, I retired this past April because of crypto, even though I waited long after I probably could have. Note, I do own or plan to own most of what I talk about on this channel that I bring up, because I don't talk about cryptos I don't believe in. We do also want to thank our new Patreons, Jerome and LB2D. And without further ado, let's cut right over to having Paul join us, because we love during these times to get his thoughts on things. He's been trading price for about 30 years now. That's a lot of amazing experience. And specifically, he's good at looking at just what the price action tells him. So I'm curious to hear what he feels about what he's seeing in the charts. Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure, as always. Great to be here, especially at this quite difficult time. But with difficult times comes good opportunities as well.
Yes, absolutely. Crazy difficult times. What the heck?
Yeah.
I remember March of 2020 being this rough, right? And it's not quite as rough as March of 2020 if people look back at the charts. Prices were way cheaper than they are today. But relative prices, prices had just gotten sunk. And we thought we were at the bottom and about to head up. And right before it did head up, it absolutely pummeled us. Much of what's been happening now, because many of us expected December, especially once we got into 7th to 10th of December, as like this December pump is not happening. I bet you December's going to be bloody, and then January's going to be bloody as well. And it has been. It's just been bigger than I thought it would be.
So, yeah, absolutely. In terms of looking at the chart, should we go into them? And I can tell you what.
Let's definitely do that.
Yeah, sure. Well, basically, the way I see it is the market may be looking at the end of the pandemic. And you might think, well, that's an amazingly good thing. And of course it is. But the other side of that is the government assistance won't be as much. And bond yields have been rising. So paradoxically, when the market gets good news, the market can react badly. Now, I'm talking mainly about how the equity markets have responded, and I'll show you just very quickly, because of course we want to get onto the cryptocurrencies. But the S&P 500 has made a topping pattern, and it was languishing in a range for quite some time before it dropped. But one of the main markets that have been leading the way up was the NASDAQ. So on the way up, it was stronger, but it started to become weaker. And it was correcting faster than everything else just before this really big move. So this, for me, was a technical triple top, and it triggered down, little consolidation, and then bam, we've seen a really big move. So big move to the downside in equities, but it was already moving to the downside. Now we've got this rebound, which obviously people are looking at this and thinking, is the bear market beginning, or was this an opportunity to buy into? Well, in terms of the long-term trend, that's still up. So there has been a top, but it hasn't created a major top. So they're using it as an opportunity to buy. So those things have come into play at the same time as yields rising, and there being a bit of global tension. So all these things have kind of pushed against anything that's and everything that's made money. So people start to liquidate their positions, but they liquidate, on the basis of short-term price action, when we should really be taking a step back and saying, where do we think this is going to be? I mean, is this it for crypto? Is it going to go to zero? Or have we got some big upside in the coming months and possibly into next year? And the answer to that is we're still in a bull market. So I don't think we're at the end of this trend. Excuse me. So if we look at 10-year yields, we talked about it a few times on the show. 10-year yields have been rising, and there's this target of 1.949%. That is an extremely big technical level. But overall, it's been going up, and that has been an important signal. And it's also, excuse me, sorry, and it's also something that has been leaning against some of the asset markets. And we did talk about how the dollar going up was also, or could potentially also be a bit of a problem when it comes to crypto. Mm-hmm. And the dollar index has been holding up very well. It bounced off a really important support point and is now moving higher again. So as far as I can see, the US dollar has got a bit more upside. Excuse me. But the dollar's got a bit more upside. And this can lead into a bit more pressure on the cryptocurrency markets. Now, having said that, if we go to the chart of Bitcoin, I was talking with Manu from Definity yesterday, and we were just discussing whether we thought the market, actually it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before yesterday, and we were thinking, is this market at an important low? We came to the conclusion that everybody was talking about $20,000 in Bitcoin, and the fact that it had fallen so sharply is usually a really good sign that we're at the end of the trend. So the fact that it's gone down so quickly and then rebounded is a good sign. I mean, look, it hasn't ended this trend, which is the trend that it's operating on this basis. It's been going down. I've been talking about this yellow resistance line and how the yellow resistance line is capping the gains, and we can't turn bullish until it's broken that. And we also have to go through this 54,000 level, which you've heard me speak about many times. And whilst we're below that, we have to be extremely careful. But there have been some important support points along the way. 39,576 was a really important one. It bounced off it. But then, remember, I also said, if it breaks these levels, the market goes into air pockets. And that is really sharp downward moves, which we've seen now. But at the end of the move, when you get what's called capitulation, that's where you get the sharpest move down and the biggest move up. And we have got that. So that's a really important first signal to the end of this trend. Now, even though that's happening, I've never said that I think this would just go V straight back up, all the way to 10,000. I think this will bounce, go consolidate sideways for a bit. Excuse me. And then it will take a move to the upside. So this whole price action might actually be causing people, unfortunately, to sit on the sidelines at the worst possible time. Now, nobody knows anything 100% because there's also a chance that this trend could keep going down. And the last major barrier we've got is at 28,600. I really don't want to see it get anywhere near this area. And there's an extremely good reason for that. And that reason is that if it does, we could be looking at what's called a major double top, and that's 1, 2. If that happens, then this is going to correct much further. Now, I've always said I think this will correct a bit within this correction and then go sideways and then move up again. So I still see this as a consolidation phase before the market moves higher. But the dynamics would change if it broke this 28,600 level, because it would complete a top. Now, I still don't think we're going to do that. I think the sentiment is bearish enough for it to not be a top. Usually when we're seeing a topping formation of this kind, everyone's still extremely bullish and they're ignoring the fact that the market has gone down. So sentiment at the moment, I think, is pretty negative, and people are running a bit scared on this move. And, in many ways, quite rightly so, because it's been quite sharp. But it's mainly the people who are extremely leveraged, and this is not a market to be leveraged in because it's so volatile in the first place. Now, one of the other things I did was, to take a step back, look at the big picture. What is going on with the big picture? Well, this is a chart from 2012 to where we are to date. You look at the correction, it doesn't look that big, does it? It doesn't look like a major top. It just looks like an interim correction. And you could say, yes, well, that's because it started at $2, so that's a really small, initial price action. Well, this is in percentage terms. So we look at it for that particular reason in this way. I use what's called log scale, so it puts it all in perspective. And the correction at the moment, whilst it is, on a price action basis, on a numbers basis, very large, in terms of the overall trend, it still hasn't made much of a dent in it. So I was looking at the 50% Fibonacci retracement from that 2012 low all the way up to the high on Tuesday to see if I could find some support, because I could see it had already gone through one of my major ones, and I was trying to find the next major support, and I found 34,330. Now, it hit it, and to be fair, it went a little bit below it as well, which I don't really like. I like Fibonacci levels to hit bang on, but I've also got to understand, and over the long term, the bigger the trend, the more possibility there is for slight price inaccuracies, which can move that, perhaps by 1,000 points in either direction. So I've got to give it a little bit of leeway. So sometimes we always try to be as exact as possible, but over that sort of distance of time, over, what amounts to sort of 10 years, you're going to end up with a tolerance of possibly about 1,000 points, especially when the market is really volatile. So the fact that it's bounced from there is, for me, a really good sign. This blue line here is also it's a support line that's taken from the lows. Now, I know this is becoming quite long, so I'll wrap it up in just a second. But when I draw a trend line, it has to follow from two identified support levels, and this is one, and this is the next one. So I can draw a support line that comes across here. So I drew one that was coming across here to act as support, which is now broken. That's why it's dotted. This one I could draw from this kilo, so that's definitely a kilo, to this one. So these 2 points, and then it married up just here. Now, again, it did swing below it very briefly, which we can allow for, because when the market is volatile and running scared, you get exaggerated moves. But it's above it. So I'm saying this is a good low point. I would like to see the market extend its rally into the yellow resistance line. Then I will feel a lot more comfortable about the low being in. And if that's the case, then we'll see a consolidation. So I'm broadly optimistic here. So I'm thinking that things are turning around. And I'm again, I think I've said it twice now that I'm looking for the low. Maybe third time's a charm. So that could be where we are now.
Yeah, this is why part of my investment thesis for investing for the last 24 years is I FOMO in at lows and I panic sell at highs, right? And these are the kind of lows we didn't know to hope for. I mean, by the 10th of December, I was like, December's not going to pump. We're definitely looking at elongated cycles. It'll probably be March, April, May, June. That'll be good. So I expected January to be pummeled some. Not as sharp as it has been, but that's just part of the game. Sometimes you get, and unfortunately, I deployed all my capital before these low prices. Not that I suspected they might hit lower prices, but that's one of the challenges when you're buying when it's dropping, is you don't know where the bottom is, then you deploy your capital, and you're like, well, darn it, things got even cheaper. Oh, well. And I've done that many times in the past, and it still worked out really well for me because I'm still buying at lows. If people look at the charts back to July was a fantastic time to buy. And what's funny is when these lows happen, this is the hardest time for people to buy because they get scared. And so this is number one why I don't trade on leverage, because when you actually are buying it, you can't get liquidated out. Number two, If you end up being wrong and you bought early, that just means I just wait longer. And it's worked out tremendous. And that's why the system that I've worked on has worked so well for me. And I suspect works really well in general, these rules and principles that I follow. That the little wrap that we do at the end just reinforces. And it's just longer term holds anywhere from 1 month to 2 years, depending on where we are in the cycle. And generally, you're trying to buy bottoms during the crypto winter, which are sometimes hard to identify. We had a great buying opportunity in March 2020. We didn't know to expect. Bitcoin had gone all the way to 14,000, went down to 9,000, and then 7,200. And who knew it was then going to hit $3,800? And all the altcoins with it. I was loading up on Cardano at 4 cents and thinking, oh my gosh, this is the best buy ever, right before it then hit 1.8 cents, just ever so briefly, before then running up to over $3, So, these longer term holds, like today is a great opportunity, tomorrow's probably a great opportunity, probably even for the next couple of weeks. And deploying capital, like dollar cost averaging in at these lows, usually works out really well, especially if you have the patience and tenacity not to panic sell out when things get even cheaper, because sometimes it happens. The truth about investing is nobody has a magic crystal ball. So the investors that make good funds, they generally buy at lows. And then when things get hot and people are panic buying because they're FOMOing, that's what they sell into. And these principles work really well over time. And that's why I love this system, as well as I did try during the bear market. I did try trading, right? And I started doing some technical analysis and trying to read charts and other things. And I found that it was just killing my stress levels. I even tried a bit of leverage. And I was doing lower leverage. And what I found is I couldn't step away from my computer for more than an hour. And that was miserable. It wasn't long-term sustainable because my marriage was suffering real strain. So that's why it's like this longer-term approach I love. And even days like this don't worry me so bad because I know where it's going. And for those that have extra capital to deploy, you're in a really good place. For those that don't, and you've been buying over the last number of months, you're still in a really good place. That's my guess. I don't have a magic crystal ball, but short of massive, massive things happening, my guess is we still have a major leg of the bull run ahead of us, and it's going to be wild. Now, curious to see your thoughts. Thank you for sharing your on Bitcoin. For those that want to suggest things for us to look at next week, you put them in the comments below, not on the chat, but in the actual comments, and we'll review them next week. We do have a few suggestions. Also, Paul, why don't we take a look at some of the things that have been savaged? And so we spoke about a month ago about Mana, which is the token for Decentraland, and really big because of Mark Zuckerberg. A lot of these things came into focus. Specifically, let's take a look at Mana and Sand. And they're starting to be attractive. I suspect they're going to get even more attractive because their price is still pumped up so much.
Yeah, well, the thing about Mana is I bought some more because...
All right.
Yeah, because I was like, well, what do you do in this environment? And I just thought, well, for me, I want to buy something that I'm not thinking about tomorrow, and I'm not thinking about next week, and I'm not even thinking about next month. I'm thinking about next year. So in the context of next year, it feels like people are panicking. So this is a good time for me to buy some. Now, I don't know, it could still go down to 1. But look, this is what kicked it off, this sharp move here. And I'm not going to get worried until it comes all the way back to 100% of that move. So somewhere along the line, whoever missed that move is getting an opportunity to get back in my view. Now, I know I was still holding it around here, but the trend was still up there. And yes, it's consolidated and corrected. But for me, this is correcting, but it's still elevated compared to everything else. Has Facebook just said, well, actually, we're not going to bother with the metaverse. Let's just scrap everything and do something else? No, the strategy's still there. So what has changed? Well, short-term market sentiment, because interest rates have gone up. So, that's the only thing that's happened, and that could really unwind. And I think it will unwind. Actually, I think the dollar's going to start weakening at some point this year to turn this all on its head, and everyone will be piling back into assets that they think will protect them from a falling dollar. But because it's not falling at the moment, they're not too worried about it. So anyway, so this big move down for me has been, I actually waited. I bought some, then I bought some more, then I got out of some of what I'd bought, after this big move, and then it went up a little bit more. And classic, you think, oh, I should have waited, and then then I just thought, well, it's first on my list to buy some more. If I had to sort of clear my mind and go, what would I buy first? For me, it's this. Now, the sandbox is probably a better market. I just happen to have bought this one. So, it's hit a low of some kind. It's only turned around a little bit. It's not much at all. So, again, I would say it's still got quite a lot of work to do. It could even needs to break this downward trend line as well. Needs to recover some good through some good resistance lines. So I'm not saying this is plain sailing by any stretch of the imagination, but for me, it was first on the list simply because, it was it had such a big move to start with, and I think it's a theme that's going to continue.
Yeah, it was really the first metaverse project that really got traction. And by traction, I mean there have been huge corporations that have bought large tracts of land in it. So it's still got a lot of support that way. And we'll see who wins this battle for, I guess, dominance of actual users in the metaverse play. Like Facebook is working for that. They have a huge amount of people on their actual Facebook platform, but are they going to get traction in the metaverse? I don't know. I don't trust them. I don't want to do whatever they're doing because I don't trust them with my data. I'd much rather trust Decentraland, Sandbox, or other ones like Network or other ones that might come out. I'm a little bit skewed because I remember Forever Mana being at 5 cents and 10 cents, right? So when it hit over $1, I was like, crazy. I'm taking some profits out. I'm taking massive profits out, and then that announcement from Facebook took it absolutely crazy. And I was like, well, shoot, sold early there. And it's since hit even bigger prices. Now, I'm still very bullish on the tokens for these will do well just because as they get bigger adoption, I just think the tokens will do well. I'm a really big fan of land in their ecosystems, though the land has gotten to astronomical prices. So you used to be able to buy a piece of land in Sandbox for about $100 worth of sand tokens. And presently, they're going for about $13,000. So will they do well from here? Probably. They might even go to where the entry-level price is 50 or 100,000 before then they come down. And they'll trade a lot more like real estate, and it will go in cycles like real estate. Maybe accelerated cycles because crypto is much accelerated, and it's essentially crypto real estate. But some of the ones that I've been interested in, there's a game called EmberSword, and they have some land, and the entry-level price on that is about $600 worth of ETH on the Polygon network, and you can buy that at Token Trove. I forget the website address for that, but if you just Google Token Trove, they have like Gods Unchained you can buy there. You can go to EmberSword and then you change to the Polygon network and you can see exactly where it is on the map. Because Sandbox land I was buying when it was about $100 each, although it was hard to get it because the sales would sell out like that. And I think they would then turn around and resell in the market for about $500, but they're up to about $13,000. I'm like, wow, that's done tremendously. So I continue to look for things that are underpriced, and I stay more away from the blue chips, though I still have a lot of Cardano, some Solana, some Luna, which is now in the blue chips. But I look at the smaller cap ones and I say, okay, what's not discovered yet that will hit a good narrative so I can catch that bigger wave? Because for me, even the Sandbox land, like I haven't sold my 3 pieces that I have. I'm tempted to at $13, but I'm like, I probably hit 50. But the bigger question is, like, would I buy it for $13,000, hoping to take that ride to 50? I'm probably more risky than that, and I'm looking at like EmberSword. which is like $500 now, that I hope can hit, say, $10,000 or $20,000 before the end, and I can take that ride. So I bought about 15 pieces of EmberSword land over the past month. Just hoping to take the ride. They don't have a token that you can invest in now, and you can trade it on the Polygon network on OpenSea. Thank goodness they are on Polygon, so that you can pay the cheaper prices. I like Token Trove because you can see exactly where the land is, because there is some residual income from that land. They will share a portion of the revenues generated around your piece of land with those that hold it, right? Which will be interesting. So if the game does well, that land will do really well. If the game does not do well, then that land will become worthless. Let's take a look at some viewer picks. I love your take on mana and also sand, Paul, because though I'm very opinionated, I'm always open to other well-backed and founded opinions, and they make me kind of look at mine so I can reassess my narrative. But I have a very specific frame that I share with our audience every day. What I love is for them to hear from you too, because the goal is to create the most informed audience. And if they're only listening to me, then I'm doing a disservice to them, because I'm very opinionated within my niche, but my risk tolerance doesn't fit other people's, and some people's might gravitate more towards, oh, I like Paul's analysis on this. So thank you for joining us every week. We really appreciated it.
No, I really enjoy it. I love it. But thank you. From my point of view, I will pick something because I would have heard from a professional or someone in the professional network mention it. And then I will give it like a second thought. Say Manu from Definity will mention something, and then I'll go, okay, I'll have a look at that. Or you might mention it. But what I don't do that I love that you do is you will be sort of researching all these other coins that I wouldn't even know where to start. I wouldn't even know, where to look for them. I just look at things that are on chart on the charts at CoinTrader.pro that might be, bubbling up in terms of interest, or things that come on this show. So for me, if there's a similar coin to Decentraland at a very early stage, I'm extremely interested. And I think this is the place where I would find out and start looking at a chart. But those early gains, when things just go straight up when no one's talking about it, they're the ones we really want to get hold of and hear about. But I accept that you're absolutely right. Things have already kind of moved, and it's a bit more mature. But I'm looking at it in the context of this being part of a massive bull market move, a huge move in inflation that will just get out of hand this year and for the next 3 or 4 years. And therefore, it's almost like it's not an investment per se in this particular market. It's just an investment out of US dollars, because fiat currency and inflation are running rife potentially. So with that hat on,
I think you're onto something there, that there'll be a mass exodus, and a lot of people that aren't way deep in the weeds. So a summary of what you said is, I'm way deep in the weeds looking for those diamonds in the rough, and I love it, and that's my niche. And you're looking at the broader spectrum of what is tradable by the masses, what can they find, and you're catching a narrative, because I think you're right on Mana and Decentraland, because a lot of people that come in, they can't jump into the deeper stuff till they have 3 or 4 or 5 months experience in the crypto market. So what are they going to jump to first when they're thinking, metaverse? Well, they're going to jump to Decentraland's Mana and Sand's token. And so that from here, they could still pump tremendously.
Yeah.
I look at those, and I remember when they were a diamond in the rough, and they were 5 cents and 10 cents. And even I think Mana hit at one point 3 or 4 cents during the bear market. And when the land was had appreciated all the way to $900, it was like, oh my gosh, the entry level price is $900. And now it's like 12 or 13,000. And I'm like, man, that's so expensive. So I keep looking through the weeds for the diamonds in the rough. And but a lot of people who are new in crypto and new to this channel, like I like them to get a hybrid of your thoughts and mine, because sometimes I'm so deep in the weeds, they're not ready for the stuff that I'm looking at, because I've been doing investment for 20 years, like real estate investment, but then crypto for 4. And at first I just kind of jumped onto the broader stuff because I was trying to figure out how to look through the weeds in crypto, how to dig through and find the gems that aren't really in the spotlight, that have enough that they could be in the spotlight and catch that trajectory. And that's just taken a lot of research, a lot of time, building a network that helps me and other things. So I knew when I was brand new, I was like, I want to be able to do that, but I didn't have the resources to do that. And unfortunately, nobody in YouTube that I was following at the time really did that either. So I thought, well, that's the value that I can bring to the table, is to share what I find with people. And so that's really when I started this channel, after I felt like I was good at that and had some value I could add to people there.
Brilliant. So in terms of the way I see these things, it's like you could look at, say, Apple and say, well, Apple are a company that's been around for a long time and we know about their products. Do you buy Apple, or do you buy this other technology company that you've barely not heard of, but could, at a few dollars or just a few cents, 100x, 200x, there is two sides to it. You could say, well, there's an advantage that Apple have, but there's also a disadvantage. They can't move fast. The smaller company can move really quickly into a space that a bigger company has to take much longer, but it's also riskier at the same time.
It can go to zero much easier than Apple. Apple's not going to zero.
So, but it can still have a big, move down like we've seen over the past few days. So it's a really interesting way of looking at it. And I'm just thinking, for me, when we look at the big picture, there's an argument for doing it both ways. There's an argument for saying, look, put a little bit in the majors that everybody's heard of, because they're likely to be the blue chip ones that lead the way, but then put some in the really risky ones, because then even if you spread it over 3 or 4 or 5, one of those, it just takes one to go right, and that's 100x. So it's worth the risk against the reward.
Yeah, and even if it's a small portion of your portfolio, and that one that goes 100x, it drags it up drastically, your overall returns, so that you're balancing different baskets of risk, which I strongly believe in. Myself, that's why I hold some blue chips. But as those blue chips have done well, I've diversified those into less blue chips, the riskier stuff, which I love, especially because I still think this other leg of the bull market is coming. And when it does, the blue chips do well, and they might 5x, they might 10x, some will even 20x that are already blue chip status. And that is a crazy ride. That's not even really possible in the stock market, in the blue chips of the stock market. So it's crazy that that's possible in the blue chips of the crypto market, and those are amazing returns. And for me, a lot of it isn't risky enough, and that's my risk tolerance. Now, with that risk tolerance, though, I stay the heck away from meme coins. I know in our slider, our ticker symbol that we started doing on the live streams, it has a meme coin on there, and we got a lot of flack from our own subscribers. Why is that on there? It's because it's in the top 20. And so though I don't invest in it, I would just as rather put it in a slot machine and pull the slot machine, because that's what it feels like to me. For me, my model is find companies that are led by strong individuals, or at least the companies in a strong narrative that will do well. And not that meme coins can't do well. It's proven that they can. Shiba Inu has done well, and Doge. But it's not very predictable. They're heavily reliant on an influencer such as Elon Musk coming in and saying Doge to the moon. And who knows when that's going to happen. And at some point he might decide, I'm done with Doge. And if he does, Doge is going to tank. And so I just can't, I don't call that investment. I call that speculation. And if I was going to speculate to that level, I'd just go to the casino and speculate. But I don't go to the casino. And the reason is because this system of identifying solid projects with solid founders and then trying to generally buy when nobody's talking about it and then hold it till people are talking about it. I mean, generally people aren't talking about Sandbox and Mana right now. So that's a great time to buy it, right? Does it mean it won't go lower? No, Paul just showed you it can go lower. And so that, that also fits within my system. And I do very strongly agree with having these different baskets of risk, even though I'm often like really passionate about the really cheap stuff. Now, do you mind pulling up Nomics, Paul? And let's look at one I wanted to talk about today. And in the live stream that we're also going to be talking about this. So the live stream, the audience will be viewing our video recording now on Thursday. But I'll talked about it on Wednesday's live stream. And this is Solbank. Now, it's interestingly enough, a crypto banter who has a very big microphone, and I do like crypto banter's analysis on a lot of things. He started talking about the privacy narrative, though he talked about Secret and some other coin I forget. He did not mention Solbank. But when he did mention the privacy narrative, Solbank took a run up. Now, he has a very, very big microphone, but there's still not a lot of people talking about the privacy narrative. And one of the major downsides of cryptocurrency is your lack of privacy. Do you really want everyone to know exactly where your investments are going? Well, most people don't. And that is something with blockchain. If they figure out your wallet, they can tell. So what's funny is the privacy narrative comes in waves, and it's been out of focus for a long time. And usually then it comes into focus, and then people just go crazy. What's in the privacy narrative? And things just go massively up. Now, I'm heavily invested in this one myself. It's below my average buy price by a lot, and I'm okay with that because I think this narrative will recover very, very strongly. And it's not quite as cheap as it was just a couple of days ago. A couple of days ago, it hit a really cheap thing, and who knows, maybe we're lucky and it hits even lower prices. But this is one I like strongly in that privacy narrative. Essentially, they have their own wallet, and you'll be able to send and receive funds in that wallet, as well as they're making a bridge to Monero, which is the largest privacy coin out there, so that people will be able to bridge Monero over to the Solana blockchain within this wallet. And so they'll continue, I guess they're tying into a narrative that's already really strong, which is Monero's privacy strength, and bringing that over to Solana and giving people on Solana a strong privacy narrative. Now, this is an extremely low cap altcoin. This is extremely digging in the weeds for diamonds. And this is one I really like. And I went heavy into this. I'm $30,000 into a high risk altcoin. Tells you how strongly I believe in this narrative. And just know, for those of you in the audience, I could be wrong on this. I'm not often wrong, but occasionally I am. And where I'm almost never wrong is when there's a lot of patience involved, because sometimes things take longer to happen than I think, but they almost always have happened in the crypto market when I said, man, I love this one will do well. Sometimes I've been wrong on timeline, like Gods Unchained. I was wrong on timeline. Gods Unchained finally doing really, really well again. I was buying it 2.5 years ago. Axie Infinity, I was wrong solidly for 1.5 years before I was right. And then Axie Infinity has been one of the biggest gainers of all time. But I was buying it when it was a diamond in the rough, like digging through the weeds in the grass to find it. And then people laughed at me and told me I was dumb. Well, nobody tell me, everybody now, like, wow, how did you find that? It's like digging in the weeds, doing the research. And thinking that this narrative has a strong possibility to be really hot in the future. Hopefully the team doesn't screw it up.
Yeah, so so what you were saying about the link to Monero, that is like music to my ears.
Right?
So, yeah. I mean, from a technical point of view, it does like to trade nicely from a technical point of view. We got this inverted head and shoulders pattern here that reverse this downward move, and then we got this double top that ended this move as well. Now, this trend has been going on for quite some time, as we can see. So from November into this year, it found a consolidation here. It looked like it was making a reversal, and that got completely negated by this sharp red bar down, and it's gently moved to the downside. But what is also interesting is if you zoom into where we are now and then look at how much it's up today. It's up 11.45%. Just goes to show how low it actually is right now. Because if it's up 11.45%, it's only moved this tiny amount here, then we are really looking at extremely low levels. So this fits one of the bills of, if it's a good technology and it's going to be around, then just buying a small amount of it is worth the risk. It does, to be fair, need to do a little bit more work with regards to the technicals, because there isn't a major reversal pattern. But in its favor, it is moving up with the rest of the market. So we know the rest of the market has bounced. There has been some buying going on in the majors and some of the other coins. And given that there has been some buying, if this was still red, i.e. if we were just still looking at this price action here and it hadn't bounced at all, then I'd be really concerned, because it would mean that it didn't want to join the rally with everything else. But, 11% today, probably the same yesterday and the day before, that's a decent percentage move, which tells me that, there is still some life in it. And yeah, maybe needs to go sideways a bit, to consolidate so people feel a bit more confident of joining that trend. But, something I'm going to be looking at after this show, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's still pre-sale vesting going on, and my guess is some of the pre-sale investors buy and they get their tokens and they just dump them, right? Because a lot of these pooled VCs that buy into things, a lot of times they just don't have long-term perspective. And maybe they made their gains because earlier it hit 10 cents, and if they sold at 10 cents, I don't know what the pre-sale price is. I've seen it before, but it's been a long time. They probably made their money, so anything that comes out, they just dump it. And what I love about that is it creates entry-level prices that should never be seen, but yet they are. And so when I see those kind of prices, I like it, because the numbers it's at, it's down like 92% from its highs. So you're able to buy, and that high wasn't even all that high. And so what I like about these low market cap ones is, do we know that this is going to be around 20 years from now? No, I do not know that. I would love for that to happen, because that means the market cap would get so much higher than here. But I like narratives and things that can happen. Like, do I know the team on this one? I don't. I don't know the team really at all. I know somebody who knows the team, but that's as much information as I have on the team. So I can't say, oh man, I love this team, a really strong team. But I can say the narrative is really strong. And so even if this doesn't succeed over the next 4 years, is when we have this bull leg that I suspect is still coming for us, that then one wing of that is usually the privacy narrative, that this goes absolutely crazy. Now with that, for those that invest in something risky like that, what's important is when it goes up a certain amount, that you get your initial back out. That way you take a risk-free ride. And so when I bought long before it hit 8 and 10 cents, when it hit 8 and 10 cents, I took my initial out. So I really have a risk-free ride on this. Now, I put additional capital in on the way down, and had I known it would have gotten this cheap, I would have waited. But that's just how it goes when you're playing the markets. Nobody has a magic crystal ball. So what I follow is the system that I developed that just works over time, and that I generally, when people have forgotten about it, within narratives that I think will do well, and then I wait for that narrative to do well, and that's when I cash out and take profits. One of the big narratives that I really liked February, March, April, May, June, July was the VV app collectibles, and now they're doing really, really well. So I've taken some profits on those. I still have a lot riding on that, but a lot of those things have 100x from February, March, April, and some of our viewers participated in those 100x's. And even though the crypto market has collapsed, that narrative is doing strong, and those collectibles are still at absurd prices. One collectible, a Batman specifically, was at $80 that you could just buy on the app at any time for like all through February and March, and now it's trading, last I looked, at $12,000 to $14,000. So that's over 100x on a Batman collectible within the crypto market. We had some viewers ask us to look at two projects that I'm also very big on, Drife and Form.
Right.
Drive fundamentally, I really like this one. They're trying to replace Uber. We've had this CEO on like way back in the summer. Very, very sharp gal. They got a good bit of press back in November and went absolutely crazy up to 10 cents. And then it's retraced 95% from then. Yet fundamentally as a company, I don't know anything that's going wrong. The BBC even is doing a special that they haven't aired yet on them. They're expanding outside of India to other countries. Fundamentally, I think everything's going right with the company, at least that I've heard. It's just their token price is on a massive sale.
Well, you said the magic words there. The BBC are doing a documentary on them all covering the story. We have a program here that I love watching. It's called Dragon's Den. I think in America you've got something called Shark Tank, where people turn up with business ideas, and I don't know whether it's just because I got a market background that I kind of like the business ideas that they come out with. I try and work out whether they're any good or not myself. But invariably, whether they're good ideas or not, the fact that they've been on the BBC means that everybody rushes out and buys them. Whether that's a sustainable business or not is another matter. But they will have a massive boost just from that. So that alone could see the market, rally in itself. So it's useful to know that that's going to be happening, because all advertising is good advertising. Of course, it's a barrier, isn't it? Why would they even be bothered looking at a company unless there was something interesting to say, unless it was, a good company, unless they're doing an expose of some kind, and I'm sure they're not. But the trend has been very negative, and you mentioned before that it can have something to do with lockups and people just getting out of initial investments and stuff like that, and absolutely nothing to do with the technology behind it that has got longevity and is actually a really good thing, and it just represents a good opportunity to the investor. From a technical point of view, the chart is still in this downward trend. I know I'm saying a lot of that, but I can guarantee that, well, as much as I can guarantee that there will come a time when I'll be saying, oh, well, this is in an upward trend as well, and comparing it to everything else, because things will flip. It may take a few months, but things will flip, and they'll all be, trading aggressively to the upside. And, then maybe Crypto Rain and myself will be talking about how we think the market's overdone and it's time to get out. And it will look absolutely like that is the wrong time to get out. But it will be the opposite sentiment potentially of what we're seeing now. So what I'm seeing here is a downward trend, basically. So it slowed over the last 4 days, which is a good sign. But it's done that before and then still continued down. So it's not quite enough for me to get bullish yet. But just the mere fact that the whole market has been slammed is enough for me to want to go, hunting for bargains. So if knowing that, you know the company and you've spoken to the people, and this news about the BBC makes it very tempting just to get it on the basis of that.
I'm looking at their total supply. So it says on CoinGecko that it's roughly a little over 1 billion tokens. So if we take 0.55 cents, I think that puts it at a fully diluted market cap of 55 million. I think I'm right on that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's only 5.5 million. And if so, that's even better. And maybe D can do the math on that really quick, see how correct I am, times 1 billion times 0.55 cents. And so that we can know if we're dealing with a fully diluted market cap of
0.55 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 5.5 million.
Well, fully diluted market cap of 5.5 million. Right. On something, so what they're really offering over Uber, what I liked about the CEO talking to her is she came about because she was taking Ubers and stuff, and she was listening to the drivers complain about how hard it is to make money as a driver and that their pay keeps getting squeezed. And at the same time, riders feel like their rates keep getting raised. And that was additional margins that these companies were creating for themselves because there wasn't very much competition in that space. And so she thought, how can I use the technology of cryptocurrency to essentially do what these are doing, but offer keep our overhead low so that we can offer the drivers more money while keeping the fares even lower and create a huge competitive advantage. And so that all makes sense to me. And they've been doing that as well as allowing really listening to the drivers and what their pain points were. And so they launched in India and have since spread to some other countries, which India's a good marketplace for this and a good test bed, even though some politicians in India aren't too hot on crypto. Same with US and some other countries too. But they've expanded some other countries, and so I think this narrative can do well during this bull run, even if the company doesn't survive. But I sure hope this company does survive, because I love ideas like this that reduce the cost to end users while making it so that the drivers make more money, because then you'll see more people be able to add in driving as a second job to make additional income while keeping it even cheaper for riders to get these rides. I love those type of things because they actually make the world's operating costs less expensive. Essentially, it makes people across the world more wealthy because they're having to spend less money on other things while the drivers are also making additional money. And so it hugely benefits the world. So I really would love to see them do well, not only because I've invested heavily in this token, I want the token to do well, but also I like things that reduce costs across the world because it gives the world more wealth.
It has a nice narrative to it that it's actually trying to help the actual drivers, and then
that interview we can put it up. Dee will be able to put it up, that interview with the CEO, so people can hear from her. And that'll be awesome for them to check that out if they haven't, and they can see why I'm bullish on this. Are there some risks? Yes. Anytime you're dealing with titans like Uber and Lyft, they can use politicians to squash you, and they often try. So whether they're successful or not, we'll see. Hope not. Hopefully the BBC is doing a fair analysis on them and not an actual hit piece. Sometimes they tell you they're doing a fair analysis on you, but when it actually airs, it was really a hit piece. So hopefully it wasn't that. We'll find out. It probably won't air for a little while still. So there's always risks in that. We don't know how it'll go. So let's take a look at Form.
Sure.
And this also has been punished by the marketplace to prices we never thought we would see.
Now I may not have. I don't think I have the right one. So it's Form.
Form for Formation Finance. Yeah. Formation, it's right. You were going at Formation-Fi.
Okay. That one. Yeah.
Yeah, so, but versus USD. Yeah. There we go. That's what we were looking for.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So what have we got here? We've got we got some wedge formations in this quite smooth downward trend. It seems like anything that's to do with sort of finance within the crypto space seems to be under pressure, and it's almost like cyclically everything's turning down, yet there's some absolutely amazing technology. I'm sure this is going to turn back up again as a sector, but for the moment it's still under a lot of pressure, unfortunately. Now again, I'm going to have to identify a negative slightly, because remember I was saying before about how Solbank had bounced with everything else at 3 green candles, whereas we don't have any here, or maybe just one forming. So this is still under quite a lot of pressure here, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to be, ultra cautious and say it's got a lot more work to do before I would step in, and it may even need to break back above this 0.045 level, which you might say, well, why don't you buy it now? Well, for me, sometimes I've got to put these hurdles in because I don't do the, background analysis on the market. I don't want to get caught in something that's constantly going down. And, I'd rather trade it as it's turning around or consolidating. But yeah, this is looking a little, weaker than some of the others. But to be fair, there are a few in the DeFi space, if this is where it is, that do that.
Yeah, this is like a roller coaster ride going down, right? and
Yeah.
it looks like it's still going down. So for me, like, this would be a wait. Even though I'm very bullish on this project, I have a lot of Forum. I invested really heavily into Forum at higher prices than this, and so do I hope that it turns around? No, I actually hope that it gets cheaper so I can make additional entries and pull my average cost down. I'm weird that way. Like, I don't always pray for things to go up. Sometimes I pray for them to go down, especially if I like them, so that I can get more. With that said, let's take a look at OMI. Now, for those that are watching this on Thursday, you got to check out the live stream from Wednesday night, where Dr. of Stuff joins us and D-Money joins us, and we talk specifically about Ecomi and Vivi, the collectibles and the token. Now, yes,
Look at
this
this.
was very,
Great.
very high in April. It went to 1.4 cents. And at that point, I said, I like the token. I think it'll do well, but I'm putting more of my money into the collectibles. These were the collectibles that then were like $80 that are now going for like $12,000. So now that the collectibles are going for these crazy prices, and the token is showing amazing resilience. While most of the market has totally tanked, this token just wants to run desperately. I'm like, don't be buying collectibles that were once $80 for $12 or $14,000. I mean, make your own choice on that. This is my philosophy. I'm looking for a token that hasn't even rebroken its previous highs.
Yeah, I mean, the chart is looking amazing, really, for me. Short of it being a very smooth upward trend, the next thing I like is something that looks like it's about to break into an upward trend. And that's what this looks like. And I know we talked about it at the last resistance point, which was here. But it's come back down and then formed a higher low. So look, 1, 2, 3. Look at how it's doing that. That is
Yeah.
curving up. So it means that even during, one of the worst crypto markets we've seen, it's still being bought up. It can't get anywhere near its previous low. So that's telling me that people are really using every opportunity to get in. Now, the big sort of breakout has got to be this resistance here. You can see how many times it's hit now. It's 1, 2, 3 times. It's coming up for the 4th time. So if it can get through 0081, if it can get through that, all-time highs. And I've little doubt that it's going to, well, again, I don't want to overstate things because, the market is probability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that, and I know our viewers are really smart and they know that too. So I have to preface it with something, but I'm excited about that because it's doing so well against a really weak market. Now, if you said, where do you think it will be compared to the rest of the market without looking at the chart, I would have thought it was down here. It would be down here because everything's been pressured so low. But this looks like it's just ignoring everything. So I think that's quite an exciting chart.
What's funny is collectibles have done amazing. Starting about a month ago, they just went crazy. And they had gone through a few waves before, like that collectible. Specifically, it was called the Todd McFarlane Batman collectible. Todd McFarlane was the artist that drew the original thing that the 3D model was made after. And it, was $80 way back in February, March, and then it sold out, and then you could get on the resale market for about $100, and it had gone all the way to $2,400, and then retraced to about $1,200. But in the last month, that and many other collectibles have gone absolutely crazy. And so, like, I don't chase green candles. That's when I sell, and I'm following my own advice. So it's very painful and hard to sell some of those collectibles because long term they could be worth even more. Just have to follow my own things and take some profits off the table. Some of the Marvel comics, so they have digital Marvel comics of the actual one. So Marvel issue number 1, Spider-Man issue number 1. Some of those you could have bought. I was buying some of the Marvel comics when they came out in like July at the bottom of the market, and I was buying them for $4 or $5 on the resale market. Well, those are now trading for $600. Well, that's 100x, so I've taken some profits out there. Now, some people are buying at that price. Well, that's okay, probably, it is Marvel issue number 1. It's the first time it's put on an NFT. Probably that will do well, but that doesn't mean it won't do poorly before it then does well again after it's pumped so much like that. Yet the Ecomi token is value priced. So that has me way more excited than buying something after it's 100x. That's the collectibles. With that said, I am considering strongly buying one of the Disney partner statues that have gone all the way up to like $30,000 for, no. Yeah, the partner statues, what are they at, D? About 30, 35,000 last you checked?
That sounds right to me.
So I hate that I could have bought that. I didn't get one on the drop. I know one of our audience members got an amazing one on the drop. In fact, one of our mods did. He got issue number 42 out of, I think there's only like not that many of them. And so that thing's probably worth 10x over what a normal one is worth, and it's gone to like 40,000.
Yeah, that's 40,000.
So his collectible might be worth anywhere from $100,000 to $400,000, and he paid a couple $100 for it.
Wow,
So,
well done.
yeah, that's awesome. On the resale market, though, I still could have bought one for $2,000 or $3,000. I didn't, and now I'm like, if I want to get one of those, it's going to cost me $40,000. But what's really value priced is the token. The OMI token is my opinion on it. Well, cool. That's our stuff for today. Paul, really glad to have you on, especially as, you know, the market tanked, and especially love your views on what's going on with the bond markets, the dollar market, views of where, you know, I don't know that side of things very well. So it's really good to have your perspective on that, as well as your perspective on price analysis as we look at all these things.
It's my pleasure. It's always great to hear what you've got to say on the coins, and you know, thanks again to the community for your choices, and look forward to speaking to you next week.
Yeah, anyone who has something they want us to look at next week, put that in the comments below, not on the chat to the side, in the comments, so that we can add it into the list for next week. If you're ready to level up your crypto game and be a rainmaker and join the Navy SEALs of crypto, well, what are you waiting for? Now, this channel isn't for everyone. Our goal isn't to be the biggest YouTube channel, but it is to help create the most informed audience, which we believe will lead to the wealthiest audience in crypto over time. Now, part of that journey is being realized as some of our audience has crushed it with the VV collectibles, and some of those collectibles being up 100x. But a larger part of it is yet to happen, as many of the altcoins are yet to have their day in the sun, and that is still coming. For our Rainmaker system to really work for you, you have to understand it, and that system does help rewire your brain to panic sell at the tops and FOMO in on solid projects when prices bottom, as well as understand how to find undervalued projects, and that comes through joining us on a daily basis. Also joining us on Thursdays in our video with Paul from Definity. Definity is good enough that they loan him to us. And Manu from Definity, I've talked to him, a very smart person that Paul has access to as well. Manu is brilliant, a very successful business person. And a lot of very successful, wealthy people turn to Manu for advice. So thanks to Definity for lending Paul to us, because we love having him on the show towards the greater goal of helping create the most informed audience. And I just love, I bet you love too, you can just feel how sincere Paul is. And that's one of the things I love about him, is that he is very sincere and smart and been doing this for a long time. And I appreciate his perspectives. Thank you for joining us. If you like this video, give us a strong like, and we will see you next time.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was boring, like a rainmaker should. Buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I'll always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic, then dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, but time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but when knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road could soon become a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. I'm sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crappy. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, but time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.